So everybody, welcome back to our team league of Masters League, and today we're having a best of 5 series between QTclub and Workers Are Rushing from France, and Beastie Boys, otherwise known as QTclub, is basically a European clan. And in the bottom right we have, from WRush, we have Little Nine Eye, who will be your Protoss today. And I see that he's got the Alliance decal. Very nice. I see that he also might know a little bit of World of Warcraft lore, perhaps. And in the top left we have Tony Montana from the QTclub. Now this is a best of 5 series, I've just indicated here. Very nice of this WCS user interface. You can actually adjust the points as you desire. It provides very clear indication. It's a simple and easy to watch interface. That's what I like most about it. Already we see Tony Montana. He is indeed going for probably either a proxy factory with some cyclones, or perhaps just mass reapers, which will be most fascinating and most disgusting as well. I mean, I would love to see the Protoss getting completely wrecked by WRush Reaper, but WRush Reaper is not going to be that viable. But Little Nine Eye, his sensors, his spider sensors are indeed tingling, and he's going to search for. Look at Little Nine Eye. He's going to spot the proxy barracks immediately. Look at the probe's rally point. This is a beastie yikes moment. A yikes moment. But will the probe actually see the barracks? I mean, if the probe is indeed sent here, the barracks is indeed here. So, nope. Tony Montana is just going to mess with his opponent a little bit. He's probably just going to make a Reaper. And indeed, he's just going to make a single Reaper. And perhaps Little Nine Eye is quite worried that it is probably a 3 or 2 racks Reaper. But in fact, Tony Montana, he's just going straight for the factory. He's just building the barracks there just to put on some Reaper pressure. Nothing too dramatic, but indeed the Stalker is coming out. Now, I'm not sure about the Stalker. I've seen Protoss losing to WRush Reaper just because they were so focused on making Stalkers, when in fact Adepts are much better than Stalkers at handling Reapers. For example, look at this Reaper. It's not actually being microed right now. I'm not sure what's happening in Tony Montana's mind. Apparently he does not have the APM of innovation, so he decides not to micro his Reaper. Sorry, I meant Beyond there. Beyond. He doesn't have the micro of Beyond, so he just loses that Reaper for completely free when he could just rally the Reaper and, you know, dance around in the middle line. Instead, he loses Reaper immediately. The barracks is going to be sent and landed straight back at the base of Tony Montana, and he's just going to build some cyclones just to tickle his little Terran senses. And as a Terran player, cyclones are very, very viable at defending against all sorts of Protoss nonsense in the early game, but not proxy robotics, actually. Indeed, the command center is just going to be coming down right now at 3 minutes, which is a very late command center. Note that I say very late. It looks like Little Nine Eye is being very, very cautious. He's building 2 shield batteries, and these shield batteries actually have full energy, which actually tells me that they were built quite a long time ago, and indeed a cyclone drop is going to be happening. Meanwhile, a Liberator is being produced, and the Liberator is going to get some damage done, but as I said, the Stalkers are going to deal with the Liberator, and perhaps Stalkers are in fact the better choice here. Indeed, an Immortal is coming out, so if that Immortal gets in range of Cyclones, the Cyclones will immediately die. And an Observer is being produced, of course. Wargate is nearly done. 75% done, 60% done around. Cyclone drop is going to happen. The Stalkers are caught off guard, and the Cyclones are going to do some serious damage to the middle line, but not before Tony Montana doesn't botch his micro up. Nope, he does not. The hardest thing about Starcraft is both the macro and the micro. Sure, you can have very good micro, but the macro is, you have to perform macro simultaneously, so that's one of the more difficult parts as well. Looks like a Cyclone drop is just going to hang over here. Tony probably still remembers that he has the Cyclone drop, so in fact we're going to see some tanks being built and straight transition into Stim. Indeed, he's going for double tech lab, so that implies that he's going to go for a more Marauder-based army, just because Marauders are good against Stalkers. Not that great against Immortals, but against Stalkers, very good. Looks like the Cyclone drop is going to be dealing a bit of damage again. The medevac indeed survives with 14 health. And indeed, the only upgrade done so far in the game is Warp Gate for the Protoss player. And Stim is on the way, and in fact, Tony Montana isn't researching combat shields in the second tech lab, which he probably should at this point. Well, just because you have double tech lab, it makes getting Stim and combat shields at the same time, so you don't have to worry about which one you want to get first. Looks like Tony Montana is going to set up his tanks in quite a nice fortified position, but the observer probably knows that. No, Tony's looking at his medevac, so let's see what Little Nine Eye can actually see. Little Nine Eye does see the observer. I mean, Little Nine Eye's observer does see the tank, and let's see what Tony is doing. Tony, he's just going to send in the Cyclones, and he's going to rally. Nope. Probes get no. The Cyclone gets no probes, and I'm not sure whether that was a second medevac. Was implied as a second medevac. Double forges, or the second forge is coming along. Blink is about done, and Tony Montana isn't in the best spot right now, but he does have a lot of Marines, and his combat shield is halfway done, so he's going to add on a little bit more barracks. I mean, at this point, it would be lovely if he would build an engineering bay, or indeed 2 engineering bays, so he can pump out those upgrades. The one for his Marines especially. But instead he's going to build a few medevacs, a few tanks, and so forth and so on. Indeed, he scans and he actually misses the observer. So already we can see the skill discrepancy between the Protoss player and the Terran player, because the Protoss player is actively microing his observer to avoid the Terran scans. And Tony Montana is going to move out with quite a massive army. I'm not sure Little Nine Eye is actually prepared for this. I mean, Tony, sure, he loses a tank here and there, but sieging up the tanks, no, you just need to go forward. You need to attack move straight through here and you'll win instantly. Or you could drop here since there's nothing here. But it looks like Tony is going to do a little drop with the siege tank. I'm not sure that's the most optimal. He needs to just A-move through this. Very easy. 2 shield batteries, energy will indeed be depleted very quickly from this large amount of Marines. And Tony needs to press his attack right now without hesitation. If he hesitates any second, no, Tony, do not siege up your tanks. Just move out now. I mean it, and by that I mean you could drop a mule and repair the tank, I don't care. Just stim and win. That's the point of the story. Stim and win, do not hesitate. He's being too cautious. He's been playing too many ladder games. He thinks the Protoss has some magical ingredient, but in fact Protoss don't have any magical ingredient. All you need to do is just zone out the Protoss army with some tanks here, and then just do a drop in the main base, and then do a drop in the mineral line here. Very easy indeed. Of course, easier said than done, whereas the tanks are going to fire upon the Immortals, but Tony, he's just playing a little bit safe, but it's easy being an observer, you can see everything. Obviously Tony feels that perhaps his army is not good enough, or whatever, but we're looking at Tony's vision right now. It looks like Marines are split up, but it's just irrelevant, because the number of Marines that Tony has is just irrelevant to the number of Protoss units that Little Nine Eye has. And we're seeing a lag spike there, which is quite common, because, well, observing games, players' computers are imperfect and they're always going to be lag spikes. And indeed, it seems that Little Nine Eye is going to fall to Tony Montana's relentless 2-base all-in, and that shall be the game. Now we'll see what our next game is. Our next game will be from Workers of Russian Clan. It will be Onigami, a Terran player, versus QTclub's Megs, who is a Protoss player. So it will be another Terran versus Protoss. Ooh. That was a very classic game of the Protoss being a little bit greedy, perhaps, and Tony, of course, utilizing his 2-base all-in, which is a very common strategy, just because Terran players don't want to play macro against Protoss players these days. They're just too lazy for that. Our next map will be Backwater Alley. Backwater Alley is of course the classic map where you have the hidden third base and a hidden expansion. Well, not really hidden. It's sort of secluded, shall we say? It's secluded inside, you know. Let's see what that actually means. Backwater Alley. We see the map here. It just means the third base is actually a pocket base, so you can't really get to it without, you know, good drop timings. Or in other cases, it might just mean that Backwater is, well, a more defensive map perhaps, but we'll have to see what happens. Indeed, there's nothing better to do but to wait, and I'm sorry that you guys have to wait, but these things take a little bit of time, and of course, people do things very slowly, very relaxing, very relaxed, and it's just a tournament, and I certainly hope that these games do bring a new perspective on how you guys should approach the game, or perhaps you'll learn some new strategies. Indeed, because there are so many people who want to observe and spectate at the same time, that it's taking a little bit of time for the creators of the lobby to invite all those people, so I think what I'm most excited about is indeed the fourth game, which is going to be Zayad. We're going to have Zayad, where Zayad gets to show off his impeccably large Zerg muscles, his large Zerg brain muscles. I'm not sure why I am unable to join the game. Why am I unable to join the lobby? Perhaps the lobby is full, or perhaps otherwise. Either way, I'm not sure. There we go. Our player is Megs. And where the hell is Megs? I'm not sure about that. Where? What are there? Unfortunately, it looks like one of our players has been called to the depths of his prostitute center, and he's unable to play our game right now, so we shall tag him in Discord. Perhaps too busy in the prostitute center having a little bit of fun, so we are unable to reach him right now, and fortunately, oh, the joys of waiting. Waiting and more waiting and more waiting. More waiting and more waiting. Perhaps Megs will finally lighten up. I'm still not sure where he is. Probably doesn't have to join the channel either, which is it's poor plebeians, unfortunately. Finally, perhaps. Ayaya. He probably doesn't know how to build workers as well. We should start now. Let's go. And indeed, we will be starting right now. So let me just take this overlay away, and we will be starting now. It will be on Backwater LE, it will be Onigami versus Megs. Very nice, very nice. Onigami representing the workers of rushing clan from France. We'll be playing Terran for you lovely people out there today. And in the top left we have, of course, for the QTclub we have Megs. And indeed, he'll already sent his probe out, and as you can see, the observers are having a very fun time chatting away. Indeed, the Onigami is just going for a very standard barracks into gas build, which all Terrans, of course, use. And of course, the probe will be tilting Onigami so much that Onigami is he's currently having a seizure because the probe, obviously. The Protoss probe actually, you know what, it's quite fascinating. The Protoss probe actually produces epileptic seizures if you're playing Terran. So if you're playing Terran, be sure to turn on the colorblind mode and also write a post on the Blizzard forums complaining about how probes give Terran epileptic seizures as well. Because as you can see, the probe's bright colors and their electric beam is causing many viewers to squint their eyes in discomfort. Of course, this is very unbalanced. Meg should be ashamed of himself for using such dirty tactics. Also, another dirty tactic of giving your opponents physical disabilities is simply by playing Protoss. In fact, if you play Protoss, you already have made your Terran opponent suffer a tiny heart attack and possibly 10% chance that the Terran player will also suffer a stroke upon seeing the loading screen, and that the opponent is Protoss. And indeed, Megs is going to be building Cybernetics Core, and the Cybernetics Core is going to be very vital to getting Warp Gate, and he's going to start warping immediately whilst chrono boosting at the Stalker, and of course all is well, and the Marine is going to stand guard dutifully, gazing at SCV, whilst the SCV is hard at work and the Marine is simply just standing around. Of course, that is such is the nature of being a Marine. 90% of times you just stand around. Only 10% of times you actually get to use that Ghost Rifle and actually shoot something. Of course, the first thing that a Marine and a Marauder does in the entire game is to use their weapons of mass destruction upon a set of harmless, destructible, unbuildable plates. Sorry. Indeed, it looks like Onigami is going for a Marauder Rush, or something similar to that. This concussive shells was indeed completed a moment ago. As you can see in the top left, concussive shells has been completed, and could this be the 300 IQ plate that we're looking at? Because Onigami, concussive shells are very good at making Protoss units unable to run away, and look at that concussive shell value he just got. He stopped the Stalker from running away. That's just amazing. Meanwhile, I'm pretty sure we're going to see more and more Marauders being pumped out. And indeed, Onigami is only mining off one gas geyser, which suggests to me that he's just going to be making Marines and Marauders and nothing but that. It looks like we're going to have double reactor plus one tech map on the barracks. And I'm not really sure why Onigami is taking double gases at his natural, whilst he already has an empty, well, not an empty yet, an unmined gas geyser in his main base. So I'm a bit confused as to that. I'm not sure where the units went. I think they all died to the Oracle, probably. Let's have a look at the kill count. Oracle has 2 kill count, probably killed one of those Marines and Marauders, but so far, Onigami's strategy is really confusing me. I'm not sure why he's building line missile turrets in the first place, and I'm also not sure why he got concussive shells so early in the game, and he's not making use of it at all, and now he's just producing Marines. Okay, my mind is already quite confused, and I mean, it's probably because Megs is playing Protoss, you know, and the double Oracles coming in. I think Onigami actually suffered a small stroke and he can't actually think properly. And already we see the Oracles destroying the SCVs. But missile turret, the blind missile turrets are actually getting value this time, which is quite surprising. But next, of course, he's following this up with third base, and the shield battery is going to protect his frontal flank here. It's going to protect his natural expansion, and the Stargate is going to remain unused for an extended period of time. And as for the Marines, there are a lot of Marines, yes, but only one Marauder, and I'm not sure what that concussive shells actually was for, but it looks like Onigami is going to utilize more and more barracks, follow up with starport, but at this point, Megs is quite ahead in the economy department, because he already has a third base completed, and he's just adding on more gateways, you know, being the chill guy he is. He's going to add on a little bit more gateways, and probably he's going to make a little bit more stalkers, and a little bit more of that, and a little bit more of high Templars, and a little bit more of everything, because Protoss makes a little bit of everything. Not like Terran, where you go either by or back. It looks like these Oracles are doing little dual dance here, where they go back and forth, for hours on end without stopping, if you don't tell them to stop. And it looks like the huge bio army of Onigami is moving out. This is scary enough to make Megs crap his pants already. This is indeed very scary, and indeed Stim is probably done for them as well. Yes, they are, but such large bio army, but no medevacs. I'm wondering, what is Onigami's strategy here? Onigami doesn't seem to have a very convincing build order. He's just going to build a lot of Marauders, but if he stims all of his units, they're just going to die eventually. And I mean, yes, this looks very scary, and you know, Megs can indeed warp in a lot of shield batteries and whatnot, but right now, that was really some nice micro there, as he sends in the Marine first, and of course, these Marines are going to completely destroy everything here. And indeed, I believe that Onigami has actually won the game just by being, you know, very aggressive and relentless. Meanwhile, Megs is of course trying to last his strategy of pulling probes and getting zealots. But whatever, the Stim combined with a little bit of stutter step indeed can completely ruin Meg's economy and army. And I think that Megs is indeed going to lose in a spectacular fashion just by being, you know, not well prepared for this early bio timing. With marauders and concussive shells, think of that. Think of that. There's probably a low chance that Max is going to get back into the game, but because he had a lot of workers from earlier, the worker count is actually still quite even. So he could still potentially come back, but as the first few High Templar are being warped in, of course the High Templar do not have any upgrades, so they are just there to drain the medevac's energy. But indeed, is this going to be enough? I do not think so. It does not look convincing to me. And indeed, looks like Onigami is going to load up some WoW units into the medevac, just for style points, I guess. And he's going to focus the pylon here. The pylon indeed controls 2 of these warp gates. And if he snipes that pylon there, it'll be very nice indeed. Indeed, he snipes that pylon there. He'll have an Artosis pylon in the chat, please. Artosis pylon. And indeed, there's nothing that Megs can do at this point. He's desperately trying to warp in more units, but I mean, Onigami is still on top of this macro, and another bio push is coming in, and the relentless push is eventually going to tire the Protoss out. The Protoss, unfortunately. Well, but the High Templar do have Storm. That could be a turning point. But I'm not very convinced. If Onigami continues applying this pressure, but this is a bit of a mindless strategy, and I do not suggest people to utilize the strategy of just keep running units into the Protoss space. But it could potentially be a winning strategy in this case, because Onigami is executing this build with maybe not as much polish as a master player would execute this build, but he looks like he's adding on another barracks with a tech lab, which to produce more rewards. It looks like Megs has completely ran out of resources at this point. But know that he has a lot of gas. He has 1,000 gas in the bank for Megs. And indeed, we're just going to see the Nexus slowly evaporating. Oh dear, this is disastrous indeed. This is not what one intended. Indeed, I just updated the scoreboard there, because I totally forgot about that and I was a potato. And Megs indeed does eventually tap out to that relentless bio assault by Onigami. And indeed, that was, as I say, classic Terran vs Protoss with nothing special attached to it, just because of the fact that, well, Terrans usually love doing 2-base all-ins against Protoss right now, so pardon me. GG guys. GG guys. The next map. Let's have a look at what the next map is. The next map is going to be Eastwatch, shall we? I shall create Eastwatch LE right now. Eastwatch LE, another classic map, straight from the map pool. Indeed, looks like we're going to see some. We are going to wait for the players again, just because of the fact that some of the players may be eating dinner or, as such, be unavailable to play right now. Sure, let's do the fourth match now. Indeed, we're going first to be playing Blackpink LE, Zayad versus Raiden. I'm sure you all know very famous master players. No, I'm just joking. Let's have a look. Blackpink LE will be the map of choice. So finally, we see something other than Terran versus Protoss. Indeed, this match, in fact, will be ZVP. ZVP with Zayad representing QTclub as Zerg and Raiden representing Workers Are Rushing for France. And here we go. It'll be Zayad versus Raiden. Very nicely indeed. Indeed, it looks like Raiden says that his food will be coming to him in the middle of the match, so we'll probably have a pause then, and we can all talk about the wonderful joy of eating food. And I certainly hope that he will not be eating when he's playing, because unfortunately, unlike some other things, one cannot eat and play Starcraft at the same time. It is quite literally impossible. Unless, of course, you're a man with 4 arms and let's go, shall we? And we're back to the game, and we have a Protoss vs Zerg coming for you. I'm sure you all enjoy these Protoss games. Protoss is such a balanced race, and as I said, it will be very exciting to watch, simply because Protoss is such a wonderfully balanced race. As I'm sure David Kim agrees with me, as well as current balance team, which I have no idea who's actually balancing the game right now. There's a marketing phase for them as of now. Indeed. My favorite player and my favorite boy. And no, I'm not homo, so please do not suggest that or imply that. But simply, we got Zayad. We have Zayad from the QTclub. Our boy. With his fancy skins. And in the bottom left, we have from the Workers Are Rushing clan, and who's going to get his food very soon, Little Raiden. And yes, Little Raiden is unfortunately was going to have dinner, and he's waiting for his food. So his food is going to come to him in a matter of minutes, and he will have to pause the game for a short period of time, whilst he opens his door, collects the food, and gobbles down his food in 1 minute, then proceeds to play Starcraft game. No, of course not. He's going to just wait for the game to finish before he eats, obviously. Indeed, Zayad, what is he doing? Oh, he's going for a little bit of cheese. He's making his second hatchery at what would be his third base location. So perhaps this does confuse the Protoss opponent a little. And these skins are unfortunately causing me some discomfort, as everything is so spiky and unfortunate, but looks like Little Raiden, has he scouted? He probably scouted the hatchery, or the natural expansion of Zayad, and he notices nothing. And indeed, we do see Zayad, you know, lovely Zayad. He's just going for a nice little hatchery there. Like me, Zayad also enjoys watching WRush. WRush is a very good painter. Cultural icon, an American cultural icon, I would say. Just like the old times. And Little Raiden is indeed going to pause the game for his food, as he suggests. And no, unlike what Zayad is implying, Raiden is not eating poo. I'll be quite concerned if Raiden was eating that. But some people have suggested that, well, if what I eat goes out, you know, I can eat it again, right? But unfortunately, no, that's not how works. Unfortunately, human biology is a little bit more complicated than that. And looks like Zayat is going to indeed. He's indeed going to say pause, and you know, no, what? Who knows? But meanwhile, while this pause is happening, let's talk about something else. And it looks like Marius is suggesting that Raiden is going to, pardon me, he's going to jerk off while eating his food. But unfortunately, that is neither practical nor very pleasant. Marius, perhaps, he's got a little bit of that childhood trauma where his mom actually walked in on him when he was doing the same thing. And unfortunately, he has Insits is suggesting that Raiden has a pipe directly in his arm with liquid food. And I would say that that's quite insulting to people who are in the vegetative state, especially those in the hospital. Because indeed, people who are in a vegetative state have to be fed through tubes with liquid and injected into the bloodstream somehow. I'm not sure about that. I'm not a doctor, even though I have many friends who are aspiring to become doctors, which I consider quite a difficult profession. Quite difficult to actually become a good doctor. Some people become doctors for the money, but in fact, studying medicine and becoming a doctor, there's a lot of struggle. There's a lot of psychological conflict, especially when you're doing the job. There's a lot of psychological conflict involved in that as well. So we'll see what these players are going to do. What we do see is a robotics facility coming along from Little Raiden. I certainly hope Little Raiden didn't gulp all his food down in that 1 minute, break. That would be quite disturbing, I think. Disturbing as in, when you're eating very quickly, in fact, a lot of air goes into your stomach just because of the fact that you're gasping for air when you're eating food quickly, or very quickly in this case, if you were doing that. So in fact, you'll be feeling quite bloated and uncomfortable, basically. Looks like Zayat is going for some queens, some overlords as usual, and he's just about to complete his surgeon suite. Now Zayat is very good at macro. I've seen Zayat do a lot of macro-oriented builds, and his macro never skips a beat. I'm not really sure about his micro. I guess we'll see. And he's just his overlords just hanging around here. And indeed, Little Raiden is very concerned about Zerglings getting the that he's built another pylon here, which I'm not sure why he did. I'm not sure whether that's a gap either. I'm not really sure because the building grid isn't enabled when I'm observing it. But I guess the additional pylon there was just to avoid if one pylon was down, then the other pylon will still be powering these buildings. And indeed, Zayat is going, the Zerglings are going to follow the warp prison. I nearly thought that warp prison was an oracle for some reason. Anyway, some Dark Templar harass is going to be coming on. And indeed, we're suffering a little bit of lagging. And these Spore Claws are going to be instantly killed. Indeed, Zayat is going to respond. Let's see how he responds to this little Dark Templar harass. His third base is probably going to go down. There's no doubt about that. I guess he'll just have to backweight and make the best of the situation. And indeed, the Dark Templar are all transported back to the safety of the warp prison. And the Dark Templar are going to merge into Archons, where the Archon drops are going to be even more annoying to deal with. Just because of the fact that Archons deal massive damage to biological units, and Zerglings easily die to the Archon splash attack. In other words, this Archon drop is going to deal a massive amount of damage. But looks like Zayat is quite well prepared for it, and indeed his queens are going to sufficiently defend him from that. Meanwhile, he's doing a Zergling counterattack, or he was planning to do a Zergling counterattack. But he doesn't realize that, that happened, and he sees Little Raiden's third base, and these sentries are probably just going to be all killed because they don't really have enough energy to force fields yet. They were just warped in freshly, straight from the Protoss fridge, and these Zerglings are going to die quite quickly. But as I said, look at Zayad, he lost the third base, he lost a lot of drones, and yet he's still in the supply lead, which is another testament to Zayad's great mechanical and, macro skill. So far Zayad's micro has been average, but Little Raiden is just being a Protoss player, and he's just annoying everybody to no end. And as we all know, these Archons with the new skin are even more annoying just because they are Archons. And in fact, we're going to see Little Raiden continuing his Archon drop without actually considering the impact of that, because he absolutely has nothing at his second base, but he does have a fair amount of sentries. But I think Zayad's Roach push is going to deal quite a significant amount of damage here. He's going to destroy some of the sentries, destroy some of the adepts, but as the Immortal marches in, Zayad immediately backs up. Which is quite clever of him. He's not losing too many units, he's just dealing right amount of damage to keep the Protoss players on his toes. And he's going to retreat straight back to his base, where the Archons are continuing to do damage. I'm not sure what this Archon is doing. What are you doing, Mr. Archon? What are you doing, Mr. Archon? Are you lost in the world of Zerg? He's lost and found himself in the world of Zerg. And we go back to the Roaches, where Zayad will continue to increase his supply by creating Roaches and more Roaches. Meanwhile, we do see I do believe he's completed. Nope, he's not even completed Roach speed, which is quite a detriment if he's continuing to pump out Roaches. Zayad, if you're watching this in the future or something, or whatever, or however that works, please remember to get Roach speed. And it looks like these Roaches are going to attempt to force an engagement. It looks like the amount of Immortals is simply too high. That's why Zayad actually added on the Hydralisk Den. And we see that these two armies are constantly looking out for each other. Little Raiden is going to respond by sending his Immortals to the Roaches. And I know that Immortals are very good against Roaches. Very good against Roaches. Perhaps a little bit of stutter stepping would have aided Zayad, that he could have stutter step and possibly killed a few Zealots there. Not sure about that. But what I mean when I say Zayad's macro is very good. Look at his creep spread. It's going up quite well, isn't it? He's got vision all across his side of the map. A little bit of creep spread over here wouldn't hurt. He probably needs to send 1 or 2 more queens over here. And indeed, he's just going to spot Little Raiden's army wherever he goes, and unfortunately Zayad is not really in the place to force an engagement right now. And Zayad is going to fall quite behind if Little Raiden's massive Immortal army is going to completely wreck Zayad's army, I have a feeling. But Zayad can do nothing, and indeed Little Raiden will take the victory for Workers Are Rushing Clan. Well, it's not very optimal. Indeed, it is now a 2 to 1 in favor of Workers Are Rushing Clan, which you see the logo is on the left side of the screen. I'm just consoling Zayad right now. Zayad believes that he expected the Dark Templars, and he simply did not act in time. And indeed, our 4th match is going to be Puma versus Dark. So, Puma, a lizard, not lizard, what am I talking about? A cat. That's right, a cat is going to be up against Dark. Darkness, the very force that, well, it's darkness, not force, it's sort of, a state where there's the absence of light. And we're going to continue. Our next player is Dark. And this final, if of course Workers Are Rushing manages to get a third victory, then they'll win the best of 5. But our fourth map will be on Eastwatch. So I shall create the map of Eastwatch. I'll create a lobby. Which to invite all the players in. But of course, so far we've seen a let's see, add players. I'm not sure how you actually wait, how do you actually invite people to do it? Make public. Unable when observers are present, make public. God. I'm not sure. Add player perhaps? No. Whoops. I am really a bad one. Oh, I'm not sure how to do that either. Oh my lord. So, there's post the link in the chat. The map will indeed be Eastwatch. So I'm going to make a lobby with Eastwatch only. Indeed, we're going to join, and the game is going to start very soon. So stay tuned, and I hope you all are having a lovely evening today. It is a Monday evening, and as most people say, Mondays are usually the worst day in the weekday, but you know, you're at home now, well, probably at home, so just sit back and relax. And indeed, we're going to start very soon. Where we do indeed see Puma versus Dog. Puma, his in-game name being Little Puma, and Dog from the QTclub, who is a Master 2, well, currently a Master 3 Terran, versus Puma, who is a Master 1 Terran. So the odds are in favor of Puma when it comes to just pure, you know, ladder ranking, and I'll take away this overlay so you can see what's going on. We have Little Puma versus Dog, and we shall start very soon. Dog is from the QTclub. He is one of the higher ranked members, I believe. Well, he does get a little salty from here and there, so you can prepare your salt mines if you want. I mean your salt picks if you want. Who knows? He probably won't be salty in the chat itself, but that's curious. I've never seen that profile picture, that portrait from Little Puma before. That looks like a medic or a medevac profile portrait. This will be played on Eastwatch LE, and this map is quite... It's known for its strange layout, and especially with regards to the gold base here. If I'm not mistaken, the gold base here. But anyway, introducing our players from the Workers Are Rushing clan. We have Little Puma, who will indeed show us how the Puma cat runs and leaps upon its prey. And in the bottom left, we have from the QTclub, we have Dog, for his dark forces on Marines, engulf and crush Little Puma's cat on, we shall see. But anyway, looks like Dark is going for a gas first build, and I'm sure Little Puma instead going for a slightly more unconventional TVT build, which is a barracks first into gas. The reason why you go for gas first in TVT is simply because you can get out your gas or factory units and subsequently your starport units earlier. So we have Tony Montana in chat. He's happily chatting away. It looks like Dark is indeed going to be doing a proxy. I mean, if and only if Little Puma decides not to scout with the SCV, will this actually do damage? But it looks like I think Dark's cheese is already going to fail because the SCV is indeed going to scout. And I certainly hope that Dark is not going to become salty, because if that's the case, we're going to have to take out a large salt pick and start picking away at the large salt formations that are forming around his command center. And indeed, Little Puma, indeed, a very reactive and apt player. He indeed spots Dark's lack of a barracks here. And indeed, Tony Montana is spamming in the chat. I'm not sure why that's happening, but perhaps you guys like watching the observer chat as well. I'm not sure if there's an option to disable the chat, because I believe any sort of chat in the chat box actually detracts from the game. And this is why I don't, put in all sorts of overlays when I'm streaming, because I believe that overlays and Twitch chat and sub notifications, they're quite distracting from the casting, and it's extremely important that Starcraft is a simple game, well, as simple as it can get, and that everything is nice and clean and there are no frills here and there. But indeed, Dark is going to be doing a proxy reactor cyclone, which I'm excited to see whether it works. I mean, there is a bunker here, but I'm convinced that 2 cyclones can melt away this bunker in no time. And if Little Puma doesn't start his tank immediately, then I'd say he's in a bit of trouble, because the tech lab does indeed take quite a while to build up, and in addition to that, the siege tank itself does take a little bit of time in order to build it. And indeed, if Dark lands his barracks, actually, then Little Puma cannot land his command center, but since Dark sees that there is no command center here, he decides not to land the barracks. Indeed, this is quite a clever choice, because he's putting his barracks up in the air, and no, you need to send the barracks in so that Marines actually target the barracks instead of the cyclone. Indeed, the barracks is placed in the best position possible. That is, let's have a look at Dark's view. The barracks is just barely able to spot the bunker, and indeed, we do see that Dark is going to start using the cyclones and chipping away at the bunker. But indeed, the first tank is coming out, and I'm not sure whether Dark can actually survive that assault. He needs to retract his cyclones, he needs to do that sort of stuff. But this is a very cheesy strategy, of course, but most cheesy strategies actually demand the most from a player, simply because of the micro requirements involved. And micro is not a thing that you learn easily. In fact, in StarCraft, the easier thing to do is actually the macro. The macro is you're just on full autopilot, nobody cares what you're doing. And indeed, Dark is going to go straight for the tank, and he's going to completely wreck this bunker. And indeed, with these SCVs repairing the cyclone, there's no way that this cyclone might. Nope. It looks like Puma is going to pull all his SCVs in order to repair the tank. And he's going to siege up that tank. And note that Dark has complete vision of what Little Puma is doing, simply because he has a barracks here. And the barracks is doing a lot of stuff. I mean, if you look at it, looks like Dark is going to pull back. He's had enough of that. He's dealt a reasonable amount of damage, but he's definitely behind quite severely, because well, looks like Little Puma. He's doing the little cheese here and there. He decides, well, I'm going to build an engineering bay in your natural expansion. And indeed, Darkman's not realizing this, and it looks like he's going to be building a Banshee to follow up, which is perhaps a little bit unconventional, but it does work, simply because, number one, Little Puma doesn't really know what's going on at Dark side of the map. He knows that they're minimum on equal terms in economy, because they're both in one base. However, with the Banshee, Little Puma is going to have to decide between whether to use the command center energy for mules or for scanning. And it appears that he has not enough energy for neither at the moment. And looks like he's going to misplace his landed factory because he's too in a panic. And he's going to be fortifying his frontal defense again. The Cyclone is going to make short work of the engineering bay quite quickly. Cyclones deal massive amounts of damage to single target units in a very quick, fast period of time. And it looks like that Little Puma is just going to be building missile turrets because he probably expects some Banshee follow-up. So it looks like this Banshee might not actually do anything. I think that Little Puma actually has a Viking out, so with the addition of this Raven, there's simply no chance that Dark is going to get any value with this Banshee. And indeed, the missile turret finishes the Banshee up. And indeed, Dark does tap out, and Little Puma will take the victory for Workers of Rushing Clan. In favor of Working Rushing Clan, 3-1. So that'll be the game. And it's definitely not the best performance we've seen from QTclub, but it could be better. But looks like Dark deciding on a risky strategy, and it didn't work. But that was quite fun to watch, and I'm sure my friends at home are very happy watching such fun games. Good games, well played. Indeed. That will be the end of the best of 5 today. And I'm not sure why someone called Crozard is spamming in my chat right now, but if you're watching this, Crozard, I know that you're some Pokemon from the universe of Pokemon, and you have to stop spamming Chinese characters in my chat. I would highly appreciate that. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that Best of 5 series. I will be uploading the scores to the Alpha Team League website right now. And indeed, they might have already done it. They're a very witty clan, aren't they? Very witty. Very witty. Very witty indeed. I will be seeing Tony Montana, who won the first match, Onigami, who won the second match, Puma, and Raiden. Yes. Little Puma, the cat, pounced upon his prey. And unfortunately, it will not be a victory for the Beastie Boys today. But anyway, if anything has been learned today is that, well, you can definitely win using 2 base Allins against Protoss as Terran, and you can also win by doing Dark Templar cheese into a lot of gateway units, and thirdly, you should probably not do some sort of Cyclone cheese against a Master player. Those are 3 things we learned today, and I certainly hope you guys at home have enjoyed the cast. But for now, goodbye, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.